I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. You know, we partner with a lot of different people, and today we're going to be talking about one of those partners and kind of giving a little bit of stuff that might be going on in a couple of weeks. Well, maybe a week, not this weekend.
Well, a week and a day or so.
Yeah.
So excited. We have a reoccurring guest on here, and Mr. Bob Bauer, who is the Executive Director of the Kentucky Forest Industries Association. And we're going to have Bob here in a minute come on, and he's going to be talking about the Kentucky Wood Expo. Renee, this is a really exciting time. I know our department's heavily involved, but I know certainly the Kentucky Forest Industries Association is mainly and heavily involved. And we've got a great program coming up for everybody next week here in Lexington, Kentucky, and we'll have Bob talk about what's going on with that. We'll also have Chad Nyman with us as well, and Chad's going to be talking about some of those activities. You know, folks will have a chance to make their own cutting board if they come out.
It's really cool.
It's really cool. So we'll have Chad talking about that and some of the other activities going on, as well as we'll have Michael Ammerman on, and Michael's going to be talking about the small scale logging program. So we have a lot of landowners out there that are interested or think they might be interested, maybe doing a little bit of harvesting or moving a little trees on their property. So Michael's going to help folks with that. So really excited about having all our guests on here. It's a good week to get ready for the Kentucky Wood Expo coming up next week.
Definitely. So let's go ahead and get started. So Bob, if you want to turn on your camera. Hi, welcome to the show. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So I know you're going to talk a little bit, well, a lot, I guess, about Kentucky Wood Expo, but why don't you tell us a little bit about what KFIA is so people kind of get a general understanding of that?
Right. Well, Kentucky Forest Industries Association has been around since 1965, and we have an office in Frankfort, and we represent the sawmill, logging, forestry, entire wood products industry, and also obviously forestry too. And we're an organization that people pay membership to, and we represent them in everybody in the legislature, and also work with them on a number of programs to help keep them educated and following regulations and all those kind of things. So we have a lot of programs, and then obviously we put on an annual meeting and regional meetings and keep them updated on everything that's going on. And have a lot of support from the industry and all the forestry people out there. And the Wood Expo is probably our biggest event.
Yeah. But that's importantly, it's not just for the wood industry kind of paying members, right?
Exactly. We have that to let them see. We'll have a number of outdoor and indoor exhibitors at Masterson Station Park, of course, on September 15th and 16th. This is, I think, our 6th show in Lexington, but it's our 40th anniversary for having the show. So it's been around quite a while.
That's pretty cool. That's a good
Happy anniversary.
Yeah. So we have a number of industry people come to see that equipment, but we have a large number of people outside of the industry that come just to see what's going on with the wood industry, and how, it's an extremely important, over a $12 billion industry every year here in the Commonwealth. So, and a lot of different parts to it, all the way from people managing their timber to loggers cutting it to making products and making finished products. So all those different things are represented at the expo, large number of outdoor and indoor exhibitors. But then there's a lot of other things going on too, as you well know.
Definitely. So go ahead and start your PowerPoint presentation and let us see some examples of what's going to happen next weekend.
Yeah.
Give us some details about what is actually going on the 15th and 16th. I know you have different days that different things are happening. And so just kind of give us a little bit about what's going on.
Right. Well, the 15th is the Friday. That's the first day of the show. And of course, we'll have the exhibitors. We also have some craft people there that will be selling things. And some general things that will go on both days. We'll also have we have a giant log there, and have a log guest. They'll guess the weight of that log, and we have a number of nice prizes, from a rocking chair to chainsaws to I think even a prize for the children. So that'll be ongoing. And on Friday we'll also have a number of local schools and kids coming in from all ages, doing both 4-H and FFA forestry type things, but a lot of schools that are just coming to see the different activities. And there'll be some classes, information type boost there, along with all the other things to see. And some of the kids there will be actually competing in some forestry contests, but also a little chainsaw racing, I think, and some maybe crosscut sawing. So they'll get involved a little bit. And then that day too, later in the afternoon, we'll have sort of an open lumberjack competition for different groups around the state. I think the Division of Forestry, I believe, is going to have a team, and the Lexington Fire Department, they've won it, I think, the last couple of years. And so they'll be excited to come back and defend their crown. And you never know who else will show up, but that's always a lot of fun. They practice a little bit, but that's the amateur side, but it's a lot of fun to watch.
It is a lot of fun.
And those guys like to compete. They want to win that big
Yes,
trophy.
they do.
So it's a lot of fun, and it's sort of a little precursor to what will happen the next day. So we'll have all those events on Friday, and then on Saturday, again, we'll obviously have the log gas, all the exhibits open. There's food there too, both days. On Saturday, we'll actually have some entertainment. We have a fella, Kyle Tipton, that's played around Lexington, Ashland, all around, sort of a one-man guy, and he sings a little bit of everything. So he's a lot of fun to listen to while you're taking a break. But we'll also have the collegiate competition. So we'll get some of the more experienced lumberjack people there, and they'll be competing a wide range of events, from chopping to sawing, crosscut sawing, running chainsaws, a little bit of everything, axe pro. And as a little bonus, we have Hike's Boots, who are in Lexington. We'll have a booth there, and they're bringing Mike Sullivan, who is I think he's the current world champion hot saw, holds the world record for the hot saw.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
So he'll
explain
be
what
there
a hot
both
saw
days.
is.
Yeah.
Explain what a hot saw is.
Yes, saw has a big engine, like a 300 horsepower motorcycle engine, basically. Well, I think his is actually a snowmobile engine. So he'll start that, make about 3 cuts on the log in 3 to 4 seconds. So it looks like he's cutting butter, but it runs on jet fuel. So it's a very interesting, and that's done. If you've ever seen the Steel Timber Sports, that's one of their events. So, and Mike also competes in other things, but that's sort of a little bonus we'll get to see that day. And of course, on Saturday too, we'll have the skidder competition, where our actual loggers in the state, they use a large piece of machinery called a skidder that will run and pull logs, and they'll do that through out in a field and try not to knock tennis balls off of some cones and have to be really accurate. So that's a lot of fun to watch. And then they'll also both days be practicing with a knuckle boom loader, which is a large loader with an arm on it that they load their logs onto trucks or unload them at the sawmills. So these guys are pretty good with that. They can pick up just about anything and set it in place. So they'll have a little competition. And of course, those are real life things they're doing every day. So we'll see, there'll be some prize money. And of course, that big trophy, they always want to get that trophy to brag to all the other loggers what they got done. So,
of course.
So we've got all those things, not to mention, you'll be talking about a number of educational activities going on there, the small scale logging and health, some forest health things, a lot of those things which you'll be talking about. And of course, those are open to everybody. And that also ties to our logging industry, in that they can get their master logger credits. They have to have a master logger card to log, have somebody on the operation. So they'll be able to do that and get credits both days, as many as they want. And it's tied to those courses, and some of it's through visiting exhibitors. So it's not they'll have a lot of fun getting those credits. They don't have to sit in the classroom, which is nice. So all those wide range of things are going on. And the other thing that we'll have going on both days is we've got 7 right now chainsaw carvers, and they're going to get a large 24-inch round 8-foot long log, and we'll give that to them on Friday. and they can carve anything they want out of it. And you'll be really amazed at what they can do with that. And then on the Saturday afternoon around 12:30, we're going to auction all those things off to the people there. So there's a really good chance to see some beautiful carvings and buy those. And then of course, a portion of that money, over half of that money, will go to the University of Kentucky Children's Hospital. We have a Log a Load for Kids program. We also have a silent auction there. And, the industry's up over $900,000 they've given to the hospital. So that's really nice that those carvings are pretty amazing what those guys can do. And of course, they'll have some of their own carvings and other things they'll be doing too. So it's a great chance to see some really, really cool things there tied to that.
I know a couple years ago, they had like this, I don't know, it was 8-foot statue of Groot, and they also had, like benches with bears in them. And it's
They're
just
amazing.
really amazing what you can do with a chainsaw. I know I couldn't do that with a chainsaw, but it's amazing what they can do with a chainsaw. And it just blows my mind every time I see these, to see is like, you actually created that with that. But
Yeah, there's some really nice things. A couple years ago, I ended up with supposedly a temporary, really big Yeti that I put on my porch, and it's still there. My wife's never asked about it, but it's been there. It's a fixture now.
That's all right.
Bob, I was going to say, I've really enjoyed the Wood Expo over the years, and there is really just so much for the whole family. A lot of people may not have seen some of this stuff. It's a great way to kind of get up and close to some of this stuff that maybe people only seen on TV or even heard about. So, I would encourage, even if you're not in the wood industry, I think there's a lot of people, you get a lot out of it, and it's a lot of fun, and all those games and activities, the good food trucks there. It's a good time. It really is.
Right. And one other thing that we are going to have, Berea College is going to have their horse logging teams there. So they'll sort of show how you can, and some of them still do a little of that in the woods with horses in different cases, but that used to be how it was all moved. So they'll do some demonstrations, and that's very interesting. We appreciate them taking the time to come, and they'll be doing some demonstrations both days out in the field to sort of show how that works. So, there's a lot of different things going on there for, to fill up your day and have a really nice, fun family event.
Yep.
All right. If you have little kids, a little boy, even a little girl that dreams of being on some of this equipment, they can actually get up in some of these cabs. Kids actually just climb these tires that are like, 10 times bigger than they are, and just sit there and act like they're driving, and that's an opportunity that they're not going to be able to have anywhere else. So it would make it
right.
a fun family event.
Yes.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about for the event going on?
Well, I think that covers most of it. Of course, you're going to talk about some of the other things going on there as far as educational and that kind of thing. But really, it's a great event. You can get tickets $5 in advance or $7, and young kids under 12 are free. So I think under 5 are free. So it's no charge for parking. So it's a very very inexpensive family day, and we invite everybody to come out and see all the many different things that'll be going on out there. I guarantee you'll have a good time.
Yeah.
You'll get to hear Billy doing the announcing too. That's always
there you go. You can hear him throughout Masterson Station Park. It's awesome.
Yeah, you'll hear him, that's for sure.
Hey, Bob, we did put in the chat pod the link for folks if they want to find out more about the Wood Expo and stuff. So it's in there for them as well.
Yes, it's all there. All the things are on our website, or you can even visit Forest Industries, and we have it tied into. So
Bob, give the dates and location and time again.
Again, it's September 15th and 16th, and it's at Masterson Station Park in Lexington, which is very easy to get to. And the times are about the same. On Friday, we'll get started at 9 and run till 5. And then on Saturday, they'll start a little earlier at 8:30 and run till 4:30. So pretty much the same times, and a lot of stuff going on both days, like I said. And, you come and spend the whole day out there. I guarantee you'll have a good time.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for joining us, Bob. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
All right. See you soon.
See you soon.
Okay.
All right. So next up, we have Chad Nyman. He is going to be talking about the cutting board demonstration that he's going to be doing out there. And Chad, if you want to go ahead and turn your camera on, and you can talk a little bit about what people are going to see out there and kind of, all that's involved with this cutting board. I think you see a cutting board and you don't realize what people are actually having to do to actually make this thing. Now we're not asking them to make it from scratch, but they are doing some of the finishing touches on it, which still gets them involved.
Absolutely, Renee. It's a great opportunity to talk about materials, the material that the cutting boards are made out of, and some of what goes into getting them to the point where we've got a blank that folks can finish. So I've got a little presentation I'm going to pull up that goes through some of what folks can experience out there at the Kentucky Wood Expo, as well as some of the steps and processes that we take care of on the front end, just so folks kind of see the whole picture. And so you've heard a bit from Bob Bauer and Renee and Billy about the Kentucky Wood Expo, and that's going to be September 15th and 16th, Friday and Saturday. And one of the booths, the activities out there, we're going to have a big tent out there in the middle of the fairgrounds for folks to be able to finish their own cutting boards made out of Kentucky hardwoods. And so when, where, and what, we said, Friday, we're going to be out at this cutting board booth from 1:30 to 4:30. So we're going to get a little bit of a late start on Friday. But then Saturday, we're going to be out there from 9 until 4:30, or until we run out of these cutting board blanks. We've got right around 250 of them, and we haven't run out in the past when we've done these before. So hopefully everyone that comes through will get a chance to finish their own. This is going to be out there at the Masterson Station Fairgrounds in Masterson Station Park in Lexington, Kentucky. As was mentioned, Kentucky Forest Industries Association is who leads putting on this Wood Expo, and there will be a lot of different educational events out there with UK Forestry Extension. And the physical address out there is 3051 Leestown Road, and that's Lexington, Kentucky. And so these different educational trainings and events with University of Kentucky Forestry and Natural Resources Extension will be out there. There'll be some signage for each of the booths. And so we are going to have this booth set up for folks to be able to finish their own cutting board. And this goes along with the educational video, because we want folks to get to learn a bit about Kentucky's forests and the folks that make products and all of the different types of products that we benefit from our forests. And so there is this educational component in that video, and it's about a 15-minute long video. And so participants will watch this prior to getting to finish their own cutting board. And once they're all finished with that video, they'll receive a ticket. They'll get to go through some of the processes. And so in that video, we're going to cover some important topics. We've already talked some about the economic contribution of the forest. I heard Bob mention that earlier. And so it's this enormous industry. Each year it's between 13 and $14 billion that it contributes to Kentucky's economy. And we'll talk broadly about these forests that cover half of the state of Kentucky nearly, and the hardwood species of trees that are in that forest. We'll talk some about sustainability and forest management. We'll talk some about that industry and that economic contribution that is provided through those forests and products. And we'll have Dr. Crocker talking some about forest health, as well as wildlife that benefit from forest management. And so all of those themes and general ideas will be conveyed in different components of that educational video that we've got put together. I do want to mention that the lumber that's used in this cutting board workshop is donated from industry partners. And so we do want to acknowledge and appreciate Somerset Hardwood Flooring and Merrick Hardwoods for donating that lumber. And so along those lines, we think about, the processing of this lumber and what has to occur behind the scenes to get to the point of having a cutting board blank. And so we know the lumber that's used in these cutting boards, it was harvested from Kentucky trees by a logger. And then those logs were hauled to a sawmill where they were sawed into lumber, and then afterwards dried in a kiln down to about 7 to 8% moisture content. And then we brought all of that wood to UK's Robinson Wood Utilization Center over in Breathitt County. It's the research station for the University of Kentucky in the eastern portion of the state, where we took that lumber and we ripped and chopped and glued into panels these blanks. And so I've got a picture of what one of these blanks looks like here on the left, and just a very small picture here of our Wood Utilization Center here in Breathitt County. We have a Facebook page if you have interest in finding out more about that Robinson Wood Utilization Center and some of the trainings that we conduct there. Feel free to scan that QR code and you can check out that page. But so these blanks are then processed down, and we'll round the edges over and do a bit of sanding to get these in shape to where folks can be able to go through this process in about 10 to 15 minutes. And so we have these blanks, as you can see here. And an interesting fact, each one of these cutting board blanks contains right at about 1 board foot of wood. There is a variety of different species that you can see here, including red oak and white oak and maple. And we also have a bit of cherry or walnut that we put in the middle of these to give a little bit of contrast. And so these are all native hardwood species that are found in the forests of Kentucky, naturally occurring. And so set up at the fairgrounds on September 15th and 16th. So what will participants get to do? So first, we know they're going to watch that corresponding video. But after that, they'll get to router the sides of their cutting board and make a nice smooth edge. They'll use a palm sander to be able to finish sand their board. And then afterwards, they'll oil that cutting board with a food-safe mineral oil. And then they get to take that cutting board home for their use, and they get to remember all of those interesting facts they learned about Kentucky's forests. And so this just shows a few pictures from that Wood Expo fairgrounds, and you can see this big blue and white tent that'll be set up out there by the shrubbery. And we've got router tables that we've constructed so folks can router those edges safely, keeping their fingers away from that router bit. And so you can see they'll put a nice round edge on there. And it's a pretty safe and straightforward process where folks get to, a lot of times this is the first time that many of these folks have used power tools. And so it's great, experience just from that side of things. But then once they've got those edges routed, they are able to go with a palm sander and get a nice smooth surface, smooth out any rough spots that might be remaining on the surface and sides of the cutting board. And so they'll use a palm sander here with some sandpaper on it. We can see here a young person is finished sanding their cutting board with a little bit of assistance. And then we get to the fun part. You get to take some of this mineral oil and apply that to that wood surface to protect it in use. And it also makes the grain and all of the appearance and color of that cutting board pop. And so it's you go through the hard work phase and then you get to the end and you're able to put this mineral oil on there and get a nice finished look that also serves as a protectant. Again, this is a food grade safe mineral oil. We know you can source this from a variety of grocery, pharmacy, and other stores. And so then you end up with the finished results. We have these nice finished cutting boards. No two are the same, so each one is unique, made from our local Kentucky wood. And through that process, everyone gets to learn about Kentucky's forests and all of the products that come from them and all those benefits that our forests provide. And again, all are welcome for this educational and fun activity. And so we do provide some care instructions that come along with these cutting boards for folks to be able to make sure that they maintain that cutting board safely and keep it in good condition. And so we'll have that information for folks as they complete their cutting board. And so again, the 2023 Kentucky Wood Expo, it's September 15th and 16th. And the cutting board workshop will be Friday from 1:30 to 4:30, and then Saturday from 9 until 4:30. It'll be under the big tent by the shrubs in the middle of the Masterson Station Fairgrounds. And I just want to give a little plug for some of those additional forestry education opportunities. I know Dr. Crocker is going to be giving a forest health training out there. And Michael Ammerman, who you'll hear from here shortly, is going to do a small scale logging equipment demonstration. There's going to be collegiate conclave competitions, Kentucky Master Logger education. We'll be out there both days, Friday and Saturday. There is a critter tent that will be staffed by Forestry and Natural Resources Extension that has different wildlife experience for folks to be able to get to meet some critters out there. And also the East Kentucky Society of American Foresters and Association of Consulting Foresters are going to be having a joint meeting out there Friday morning. So lots of great educational opportunities that'll be going along with this Wood Expo program. So come on out and make your own cutting board and check out what the Wood Expo has to offer.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I've actually looked at those cutting boards and they're sanding them and looking at them, and then they put that oil on them and it just pops. I
Yes.
mean, it's amazing. I have actually seen a kid just like, whoa, and so that is a good learning experience just in itself, just to put oil on the wood and just to see what happens. And it just makes it look so neat. But there's a lot of different experiences that you can have at the Wood Expo. So, come on out, Billy and I'll be out there too. So you can see us and give us some show ideas while you're out there.
Always looking for tips. Yeah.
Always. But thank you, Chad. We greatly appreciate you going over that and letting us know all those details.
Thank you all.
It's beautiful, Chad, really what you're doing with that stuff. And, I see so many people just light up when they're leaving that. So like Renee said, it's, get your family out there, check this out. It's a good time. People really enjoy it. Plus the cutting board's amazing, right? It really is that you get to leave.
Absolutely.
So, really wonderful work and great working with partners to get that wood in here. And, great works. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all for having me on.
Yeah,
Right.
good
Appreciate
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
All
Come
right.
see
So
Chad out there and make your own
coming-
cutting board. I mean, gosh,
I
there's
know.
so much to do. Yes.
you make your own cutting board. You can go to the critter tent and you might be able to hold a snake. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, come on. There's all sorts of different things. You can pet a skunk, not a real skunk, but
And you might get a chance to meet one of our brand new members of our team. Well,
Exactly.
relatively brand new and first time ever on our show too, Mr. Michael Ammerman. Michael,
Hi,
welcome.
How is everyone today?
Great.
Doing well.
Now,
Delighted
You're
to have
going to be
you with us.
doing the small scale logging event at the Kentucky Wood Expo and showing people kind of what this equipment is and what they could do out there. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, yeah. We've got the upcoming small scale logging event with the Wood Expo. It's gonna be a 2-day event where anybody's welcome to join. Anybody can come by. I have a little PowerPoint here
Wonderful.
if it's all right for me to go ahead and share
Yeah,
it.
go ahead.
That's it.
For the Wood Expo, I will be doing a small scale logging demonstration. This will be a multi-day event through the 2 days that Wood Expo is going on. And so to start off, who is small scale logging for? So essentially what we're doing is we're taking logging principles and we're moving them on a much smaller scale. So that way your individual person or a crew of 1 or 2 people can knock out some woodland management. So for this, who is it for? Woodland owners / farmers, right? So your woodland owners typically have woods that they want to manage without essentially using a large area of disturbance. And the principles from this small scale logging program can provide those services or provide a demonstration on how they can manage that for themselves. Also, forest managers, this is a great opportunity and a great demonstration for them to learn how, or to even showcase some equipment that they can purchase in order for them to help on a smaller scale manage some of the people they're consulting or some of the landowners they're consulting to help bring down some of those costs for those owners. Foresters in general could benefit from using this and from seeing some of the demonstrations and getting used to some of this technologies. Also, loggers. I know that it seems kind of odd to say that loggers already have all the large equipment, whether that's a logging truck, a knuckle boom, Some even have, mechanized fellers such as cut to link systems or feller bunchers that really just go out there and grab the log. It's really a pretty cool process to see those equipment work, such as a feller buncher, because you can just take a big tree and just cut them. But they also don't always want to pull out that equipment if they're doing some local management on their farms or their land. They could use some of these principles and minimize that disturbance. And also, if you're a logger, you're still, or anybody that's any continuing education through the Kentucky Master Logger Program, we will be providing continuing education at the Wood Expo for all interested master loggers to gain some hours, gain their 6 hours that they need, and we'll be offering 6 hours each day. So also, if you want to gain 3 hours on Friday and then 3 hours on Saturday, or mix and match it, that's you're welcome to do that. And but yeah, with this small scale logging, that'll be one of the things you can do in order to earn some of these hours by watching my demonstration, asking questions, things like that, right? So why do small scale logging, right? I kind of already touched on that. So management, we're essentially lowering that management rate of how we're making it more accessible to people that have small, single acre or low acre woodlands, right? You're seeing 10, 20 acres of woodland, and it's kind of hard to have a professional consulting forester or a logger to come out there and manage these woods and make it cost efficient to where you're benefiting from a huge amount of cost there, right? Or you're not getting a lot of profit from your thinning or your other management principles, and you're hoping to essentially make a little bit of money off of it, right? So that's where your cost benefit comes in, right? If you have a smaller woodland property, it's essentially kind of hard to, make a profit off those if you're having to hire a company or hire loggers to come out there and hire it, and you got to split up some of that cost with them on a cost share basis usually. The availability of resources, typically some of the equipment that we use with this, such as a tractor and ATV, most of your woodland owners would have. So you already have that availability of resources to lower costs essentially, because if you have a farm or woodland, you're usually managing your farm with a tractor that has a 3-point hitch with a PTO driven shaft, right? And then you have an ATV, an all-terrain vehicle that, or four-wheeler that is operated, that you're using to run around on your woods or your property, or as people from my hometown like to call it, they like to go riding around, right? Go on the back roads, go on the back trails. So you already have that available most of the time. And it's good exercise. You out there with the chainsaw, you're moving around, you're cutting trees, you're packing an 8, 9, 10, 15-pound chainsaw, and they can get you a pretty good workout there that happen to go in the gym, and you're, doing some management there while also hopefully making some money on it, right? So the equipment demonstrations we have here. So we essentially, the first one in my personal favorite is the 55H Uniforce log winch on the tractor, which this isn't really a great picture I have on here, but you can see this log winch. It mounts on a 3-point hitch within the tractor, and it has PTO driven. So in order to pull the choker chain that goes on it, that skids the log essentially to where you want it, it's PTO driven through the PTO shaft. It uses the PTO to crank the hydraulics, which then a DC battery or a car battery that's typically on a tractor, you hook up some alligator cables to it, and then you just winch it right on up. It's a pretty simple process. Once you mount it on once you get the PTO connected and the 3-point hitch on there, it's smooth sailing from there. And it gives you a lot more power too than you would think. Those tractors, they have a lot of horsepower to them that they can pull, and that they're a pretty good anchor for skidding some of those logs out of there and getting that done. Now this 55H Uniforce log winch, it's a little bit more pricey on the end. It's about $10,000 now with inflation and things like that. But there are smaller models that would work just as well for, if you're cutting down, you don't have large timber you're trying to cut, you're just trying to thin out a little bit. They have some that Uniforest has a 35M log winch that costs around $4,000. So we also have an Anderson M40 log loader, which is fun to use. You can kind of see it here in the background of the, Renee, can you all see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, so as you can see here, we have a little bit in the background. You can see here we have our Anderson log loader. It's essentially it's kind of like a forwarder mixed with a knuckle boom, right? Well, really, it's just a forwarder essentially that you hook up on either the back of a tractor or your truck or anything like that. You can take your logs that you've skidded with your skidding plate over there to it, pick it up, put it on the trailer, and deliver it to the mill if you have to, or deliver it to where if you're cutting firewood, deliver it to your firewood spot, right? So you can haul more of those at one point in time, essentially. We also have a log skidding arch. You can see here the blue log skidding arch that connects to the back of an ATV tractor with either a 1.5 point ball hitch or a 2 point ball hitch. And you can literally, as you'll see the demonstration, you see how we'll show you how to latch it on there, how to use how you get tension on it, how you can crank it and move your logs, how this is a little bit more efficient for skidding them because it lifts the front end of the log up and it's only dragging the end of it. So you're also getting less damage to, say, your field or your grass or wherever it is you're moving them from, right? So you're minimizing that disturbance. If Chad's still on here, Chad's personal favorite is the small skidding blade, and it's also a pretty good tool because it's pretty cost efficient skidding tool because it's pretty cheap. It's around $300-400. It's very heavy. It's essentially a solid sheet of steel that's designed to skid on grass or gravel or even some blacktop a little bit. But really, it's a pretty cost-effective way. You can see here on this ATV, this little side-by-side machine we have. You can see that it's got a chain there that's connected to the ball hitch. And then you can see you put the log right on there and then you skid it out, and we'll even show you some of that demonstration for it. So when will we be doing this event? The event for this, the time is September 15th and September 16th of the Wood Expo. So on Friday, September 15th, I will be there at the demonstration area from 2 to 5. So anybody that just wants to see it and see individual equipment that day, just swing by, say, hey, I want to see this. I want to see the log loader operate, and I want to see the log winch skid some logs to the spot, or etc. Right? So that'll be there just for open demonstrations, get a little hands-on, get a little sight. And then on Saturday, September 16th from 10, so it's going to be an hour program each. So I'll start at the top of each hour until noon. So from 10, I'll start one of the demonstrations, and then 11, I'll repeat that demonstration, and 12, I'll repeat the demonstration again, right? So you have 3 entire demonstrations of all the equipment. So yeah, that's pretty much kind of all I have for that. But thank you all for letting me come on here.
Thank you, Michael. We greatly appreciate that. And, looking forward to your well, I was gonna say presentation with the equipment. So that'll be really fun to see. So
I'm excited.
yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, what a great opportunity if you've thought about some of this stuff to be able to see it and have somebody kind of go over it with you and kind of talk about the ins and outs of it. And I know there's a lot of woodland owners and county agents that have been maybe interested in that type of stuff. So please take advantage of this opportunity. That these guys have been working with this equipment for a few years now, so they've got some experience with it. So yeah, take advantage of this great opportunity if it's something you've been thinking about.
Right. And we do have one more thing today. And, this is something that is really interesting to me, because you would think, and I think a lot of people have this impression, that logging hurts birds, and hurts wildlife. But actually, that's not the case. And we have Dr. DJ McNeil. He did a presentation for us that we're going to run the video of about logging and benefits for birds.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, one of the big pushes like we're having here in Kentucky is like with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources with, early successional habitat. And we have such an intact forest that a lot of times we don't have enough habitat diversity. So really appreciate Dr. McNeil putting this together for us to highlight the value that good harvesting practices can have on wildlife population. So I'll go ahead and get that going, Renee.
Great, thank you.
Okay, welcome to another edition of the From the Woods Today Bird of the Month. We've got a special discussion that we're going to engage in today. And what we're going to do is we're going to explore the benefits of logging to some of Kentucky's native bird species. it feels a bit counterintuitive that logging may be a tool that we could use to help some of Kentucky's native birds, right? So this is a lovely picture of a male on the left and female on the right, Baltimore Orioles. They're up at the top of a tree. Looks like maybe a serviceberry or a cherry or something along those lines. But birds are, as I often think of them, made for the trees. So it doesn't feel like any activity that would remove trees, like logging, could be beneficial to birds. But as we'll discuss today, that's very much not the way to think about things, and birds are not quite that simple. There are some species of birds that absolutely do require areas with very few trees, and those are still forest birds. We're going to discuss how that works and what that logic is and what species are helped by that and things along those lines today. So logging. So we're here to discuss logging. Logging is a tool that's used to manage forest, specifically to remove biomass from a forest, to cut down adult full-size trees. And to understand the effects of logging on native bird species, we need to know a little bit more about the diversity of Kentucky's forest bird community. So let's start thinking about the different kinds of birds that we might see in Kentucky's forests. So what I've got here is an example of a mature eastern deciduous forest. And there's a bunch of different species of birds that you can find in a stand that looks like this. This is the wood thrush, really beautiful bird, spends a lot of time on the ground. They build their nest during the breeding season a couple meters off the ground, sometimes as low as like knee height, but sometimes well above your head, so somewhere in the mid-story. They spend a lot of time on the ground. It's a thrush in the family Turdidae, so they run around on the ground much like a robin does, foraging for invertebrates. And they have a very beautiful song. I'll play it briefly here for you. It's this very flute-like ee-ole. So you can find these birds in mature eastern deciduous. Here's another one. This is called the red-eyed vireo. The red-eyed vireo spends most of its time off the ground, unlike the wood thrush. They build their nest at a wide variety of heights, usually higher than where a wood thrush will, but I've seen red-eyed vireo nests pretty low to the ground. This is one of the most abundant birds you can find in any eastern deciduous forest. They spend a lot of time high up in the canopy, and they have a very kind of repetitive, not terribly exciting song that some have described as sounding like they're saying, "Here I am, where are you? I am here, where are you?" Finally, I think this is the last one I have on here, the ovenbird. And these are not, this is not a complete list. In fact, this is just a few of the migratory birds you can find in mature forests in the summer. The ovenbird has habits somewhat similar to the wood thrush, but it's actually a small warbler, spends a lot of time on the ground. This bird actually does build its nest on the ground. It constructs a little cave basically out of leaves, and it sings a repetitive song that sounds to some like it's saying, "Teacher, teacher, 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 teacher." So these are a few of the birds that you can find in eastern deciduous forest, in mature forest. So what happens when we log a mature forest that may have ovenbirds and red-eyed vireos in it? Immediately after logging, depending on the type of cut and so forth, a fresh overstory removal harvest may look something like this. You can see this stand here there's a lot of bare ground, there's leaf litter exposed, there's very little advanced regeneration in this understory. So, and this can be fine. There are many techniques of forest management that involve accelerating the advancement of regeneration in the understory. This particular cut doesn't have much of that, but that can be fine as long as things like white-tailed deer that would otherwise very heavily attack that regenerating understory are kept in check, either through deer exclosures or the management is done in areas with low deer density, what have you. So when you clear a forest, or in this case, I should say, clear cut a forest, and allow that regeneration to occur at the very beginning, it's not going to provide a ton of habitat for many species. I mean, you don't get me wrong, you'll still have birds out there. There'll be red-eyed vireos in those trees. There's going to be black and white warblers. There are chickadees, woodpeckers. There will be plenty of birds, but nothing like what you would expect. And that's because this stand doesn't have that advanced regeneration. But you give that stand 4 or 5 years, you get something that looks more like this, right? Those retended canopy trees are still one of the more prominent features of the stand. However, now we've got advanced regeneration in the understory, and this is where we can really start getting some of our most interesting birds here in the state of Kentucky that benefit basically from responsible logging. For instance, this little guy, we've talked about it on From the Woods Today, is the American woodcock, and it's a ground nesting bird. It's a game bird, widely hunted across most of its range, and it is rapidly declining. It is not declining due to hunting, but instead it is declining due to the loss of its breeding habitat. And this guy breeds in early successional forests and shrublands, much like those created through logging. Another one, a really fun one here, this is the eastern towhee. And the towhee is another species of eastern deciduous bird that depends on early successional habitats. It loves nesting in these shrublands or regenerating clear cuts. These are birds that are going to be spending most of their time on the ground. So it doesn't look much like a sparrow, but it is actually a large sparrow. And they spend most of their time foraging on the ground. Males will jump up into taller vegetation and sing. They have a really interesting song that to many sounds like they're saying, "Drink your tea." Another species that's going to be fairly common in some of these is the chestnut-sided warbler. So this is a long-distance neotropical migrant. They winter in Central and South America, but they breed in early successional communities like a regenerating clearcut or shrubland across places like Kentucky. It's another species that's becoming more and more difficult to find. Really beautiful bird, black markings on the face, a white cheek, and a white kind of neck. You've got a yellow forecrown, and then of course the namesake chestnut flank. The species also has a very fun song that to some sounds like they're saying, "Please, please, please, pleased to meet you." Of course, we're just scraping the surface here, but talking about a few fun ones. The indigo bunting. Now, the indigo bunting, it's at least the male shown on the left here, very hard to mistake for anything else. That pretty much uniform blue plumage across the entire bird, most deepest at the head. The female is a bit more drab, kind of reminding one of a female brown-headed cowbird. But the male is distinctive in both its visual appearance as well as the song. They have a lovely little song that's often produced with each note given in pairs. So it may sound a bit like the bird is saying, "Fire, fire, where, here, here, now." So these are a few of the birds that you can expect to find in a regenerating clear cut. But why are these species found in these communities so dense? They're generally either nesting on the ground or nesting near the ground. So this nest on the far left is a towhee nest. It's pretty much a typical towhee nest. I usually find them with 4 eggs. That one has 5. Obviously, there's a bit of variation, but they're almost always constructed directly on the ground. So you can see that nest is right on the ground. On the upper right, that's an American woodcock nest. Of course, they nest directly on the ground. They don't really construct much of a nest per se, so much as they make a little scrape and lay 4 eggs in that and hatch their young. So it's actually kind of hard to see, but there's 2 little baby woodcocks maybe 3. I don't know. There's a couple of baby woodcocks coming out there, and they're very well camouflaged. And then finally in the bottom right, that's an indigo bunting nest. So I don't think they typically nest on the ground, but they nest very low to the ground, within a couple feet of the ground. So that one looks like it's probably in some brambles of some sort. So these birds need this really dense understory to conceal their nests that they place directly on. And beyond that, most of these species are in decline. So actually these 4 that we're talking about right now are all in decline. And the reason that they're in decline is due to the suppression of ecological disturbances like beavers and wildfire that can be imitated or mimicked using regeneration timber harvest via logging. So beyond that, though, these stands don't just vanish, right? So they continue to regenerate. So we saw a fresh clear cut that looked kind of ugly. And as it's gotten older, it starts supporting things like indigo buntings and chestnut-sided warblers. Well, as it gets older, it's going to support things like grouse, which is, of course, another popular game bird, also declining due to the lack of disturbance. We've talked about the species on here before, but I think it's a fun one to talk about. Beyond being a game bird and quite tasty, they're very interesting ecologically and behaviorally. This is a male here, and what they do is they jump up onto a fallen log and they flap their wings, and when they flap them, each flap produces like a thump. And they do it very rapidly in such a way that it produces a accelerated drumming, which really apparently gets the female grouse excited. So this is how a male ruffed grouse attracts the female, and this is what that drumming would sound like if you're in the woods. Species. This is a lovely rose-breasted grosbeak. That's a male there. That black hood and that black wings and tail with white spots and white patches. And of course the namesake rose breast. Another species that really enjoys these sort of pole-age timber stands that are maybe 10 to 20 years post-harvest. And it goes beyond nesting too, right? So this is sort of a spectrum of ecological disturbance I've shown here, with a timber harvest kind of somewhere in the middle there. And birds like the woodcock that nest kind of in the earlier stages of succession, after they've nested, they take their young, their little chicks, they take them into the older age class of forest. And you've got things like the ovenbird there in the upper right, they nest in the mature or older stands. And when they've got little fledglings, they take those birds into the deeper, the shrubbier, denser early successional stands. So, in sum, using logging in such a way that promotes the sustainable regeneration of the understory can not only not harm our birds, but can have an enormous benefit to many species of eastern Kentucky forest birds. With that, I'll say thank you, and I'll look forward to chatting with you all next time on the Bird of the Month with From the Woods Today.
We always appreciate him and those bird calls and everything. Some of them I don't hear at all, I will be honest with you, and others is like right on. I really appreciate Dr. DJ McNeil doing those for us, and every other or every month, and we really appreciate those. So, we really appreciate all of our guests, from Bob Bauer to Chad to Michael, and also Dr. McNeil. We appreciate everyone of them talking about the Kentucky Wood Expo that is coming up on the 15th and 16th. Get out there and enjoy that, and make a cutting board, have some educational in different things that you can go through if you need continuing educational credits. If you're a consulting forester or a master logger, you might check that out to be able to get those as well. I don't see any questions in the chat pods right now, so we are going to go ahead and end our show for today. And we greatly appreciate you being here every week. Wednesdays at 11 o'clock is when we are on, and you can always go to FromTheWoodsToday.com to end up seeing all of our past shows. We greatly appreciate you joining us, and we will see you next week. Take care. Bye.
From the woods today.